Beyond the Gates spoilers for the week of November 18 to 21. Hint that Leslie Thomas may catch a secret meeting between Vernon Dupree and Sharon Winger. Plus, Martin Richardson's fight with his sister, Catherine "Cat" Richardson, will escalate, so it's time to talk about what fans should expect to see on the CBS soap over the next 5 days. BTG fans should brace for another big blowout between the Richardson siblings at some point. As the week progresses, Martin will side with Eva Thomas on an issue, so Cat will likely see this as a major betrayal. With that said, Martin will also head to Grandad Vernon for some advice. Martin respects Vernon immensely, so can the Dupree patriarch help his grandson clear the air with Cat? Speaking of Vernon, he'll be on the verge of getting caught with Sharon, and all arrows point toward Leslie being the one to catch them. BTG spoilers for the week of November 17th tease that the two will meet again under a watchful eye. As the days go by, Leslie will attempt to extort a Dupree family member, so she may feel as if she has the goods to break up Vernon and Anita's marriage. Still, Leslie is a known liar, so Vernon may scoff at any attempts at blackmail from her. Regardless, by the time the weekend hits, Vernon will have another secret meeting, so Leslie's extortion plan is clearly going to fail. Elsewhere, Anita Dupree will issue a warning to both Leslie and Eva by the time the weekend hits, so this might be about Winterfest, as the woman wants zero drama at the event. Anita won't be the only one warning Leslie, as for one reason or another, Shanice Johnson will also put Leslie on notice. Still, Leslie will have other issues on her plate during the week of November 17th to 21st, as it seems Peaches' condition will worsen. So much so, Leslie will turn to Ted Richardson for help with her adoptive mom. Still, as much as his ex gets on his nerves, he will step up and assist the older lady. Will Ted help get Peaches a second diagnosis? Is there a chance the woman could get better, or at least find a treatment to slow her illness down? Only time will tell. Across town, June will have a nice conversation with Bradley Smitty Smith. While Smitty has always been wary of June, she's truly turned her life around and has been a positive influence in Triel Richardson's and Samantha Richardson's lives since she's been clean. She's also supported Martin and Smitty's parenting and has never gone against their wishes with the kids, so these two may finally mend fences. Meanwhile, the kids themselves will be stirring the pot of drama as Samantha's punishment places a strain on the rest of her family, while Tyrell shocks Martin by informing him of his future plans. This doesn't sound good. In other Beyond the Gates spoilers for next week, Eva and Isaiah Hawthorne's bond will deepen. It looks like these two will take their romance to the next level, which is great news for Eva, but possibly bad news for Haley Hamilton. After all, Haley is smitten with Isaiah, but she has her hands full at the moment, trying to poison her hubby, Bill Hamilton. In fact, Jacob Hawthorne will attempt to warn Bill about Haley this week. However, the lawyer will be cocky enough to tell Jacob to mind his own business and focus on his own marriage, which is on shaky ground too. By midweek, it looks like Bill will force Naomi Hawthorne to apologize to Haley, so the lawyer will feel very stupid when the truth comes out. Over in Los Angeles, Andre Richardson and Danny Dupree decide on a major investment, and by midweek, something will get delivered to their home. What could this be about? Fans will have to tune in to find out. Lastly, Carlton Fitzgerald will extend an offer to Nicole Dupree. Will this be about business, or will he ask her out on another date? Possibly Winterfest. Beyond the Gates spoilers hint that the week of November 17th to 21st will be filled with drama, mystery, a little action, with a mix of romance, so it'll be 5 days of must-see daytime television in the land of Fairmont Crest Beyond the Gates. Spoilers for the week of November 17th to 21 reveal some major bombshells in Fairmont Crest. Eva Thomas and Isaiah Hawthorne get closer, while the feuding between the Richardson siblings intensifies. Plus, Leslie Thomas tries to extort someone. Find out all the drama that's set to hit the fan on the CBS soap, down below. Beyond the Gates spoilers for the week of November 17th to 21 reveal that the connection between Eva and Isaiah will deepen. Will these two share more during a conversation, or will they hit the sheets? That's hard to say. However, as the days go by, Eva will get grilled by her dad, Ted Richardson, about something. Will this be about her growing bond with Isaiah, or her feud with her sister, Catherine "Cat" Richardson? Speaking of Cat, her rivalry with her brother, Martin Richardson, will intensify. So much so, it sounds like Martin will become #Team Eva, where Cat's fight with her half-sister is concerned. As the week progresses, Martin will turn to his granddad, Vernon Dupree, for advice. Can the Dupree patriarch help smooth things over between his grandchildren? In related news, Bradley "Smitty" Smith will have a heart-to-heart with June. Smitty has always been a little frosty with the homeless woman who's turned her life around, but as she stood by his and Martin's side and supported their parenting techniques where Samantha Richardson was concerned, he may soften his stance. In addition, Samantha's punishment will make things a little challenging for the rest of the family, while her brother Tyrell Richardson will shock Martin by telling him his future plans. Will this be a good shock or a bad one? Back to Vernon, BTG spoilers for the week of November 17th imply that he and Sharon Winger will meet again. However, this time, it'll be under a watchful eye. Who catches the two getting together in secret? Could it be Leslie? She's slated to extort a Dupree midweek, so she may see Vernon with Sharon and feel like she has the upper hand. Still, if she's the one who calls Vernon out, it may not make much of a difference, as the Friday, November 21st episode states that Vernon will organize yet another secret meeting. Elsewhere, Anita Dupree will issue a warning to both Leslie and Eva, while Shanice Johnson also puts Leslie on notice. Lastly, Ted will offer a shoulder for someone to cry on. Could this be Leslie? As the days go by, fans will see him help Peaches with something, and it sounds like he may assist with her ailment and diagnosis. Can he think of a way to save Leslie's adoptive mother? Rounding out Beyond the Gates spoilers for the week of November 17th, Danny Dupree and Andre Richardson will decide on an investment for their future. Whatever they decide to purchase, they'll get a major delivery midweek, so it'll be interesting to see this new storyline play out. Elsewhere, Nicole Dupree will get an offer from Carlton Fitzgerald. Will he ask her out on another date? Will she decline or go for it? On the agenda for this week's slate of Beyond the Gates spoilers, more secrets, showdowns, and unexpected moments and interactions. Here are a few moments on our radar for November 17th to 21st. This week, Vernon and Sharon meet yet again, this time under watchful eyes. What does that mean? Someone witnesses their rendezvous? Or maybe this is just about Anita figuring out that Vernon is hiding something and wanting to know the details. In the BTG weekly video preview, she does have some curious words for her husband. So, are you going to tell me what this little secret is? Or do I have to start guessing? And you know how vivid my imagination is. Vernon must somehow manage to avoid giving his wife a proper response. By the end of the week, look for the retired senator to make plans for another clandestine date. Leslie just talked her way onto Anita's Winterfest planning committee, and she's apparently not going to stop there. According to the weekly BTG spoilers, Leslie tries to extort another Dupree. Who does she go after now? And will they give in to Leslie's demands? What kind of leverage is she holding over this person's head? It won't be a complete week of wins for Leslie, not when the Anita Dupree is involved. On Friday, there will be some tense moments involving Anita, Leslie, and Eva. The teasers suggest that Anita doesn't mince words with both Thomas women. Eva has given as good as she's gotten, while Leslie has been bulldozing her way into the Fairmont Crest community since she returned to town. And it's gotten more intense since she started collecting on that trust Anita set aside for Barbara's heirs. Anita has already informed Leslie that she will no longer contribute to that bottomless trust that seems to be generating enough money to keep Leslie in the style she has quickly become accustomed to for a long time to come. This isn't the only time this week that someone will take Leslie aside and give them a piece of their mind. On Thursday, Shanice puts Leslie on notice, potentially sparking another rivalry. Here are your spoilers for Beyond the Gates. On Monday, November 17th, 2025, Kat seeks guidance, and Bill issues a warning to Jacob. Kat seems to be the only one who feels the way she does, that Eva is not her equal and has no right to call Ted her dad. If Kat had her way, she wouldn't ever have to see Eva again. In Monday's episode, Kat turns to an unexpected source for guidance. Nothing would be more unpredictable than turning to Leslie for help, but failing that, the most unlikely after Leslie would be Isaiah Hawthorne. After all, guidance is kind of his jam. In Monday's episode, Bill issues a warning to Jacob, following the conversation Jacob had with his wife Naomi concerning the fact that Haley was hiding from Bill. She was on the contraceptive pill, despite claiming to be waiting to start a family with Bill. Naomi said she didn't want to be the one to tell Bill, and it's clear that Jacob feels that Bill should know. The saying "don't shoot the messenger" is going to be quite appropriate, I think, and Bill isn't going to take this news well. In Monday's episode, Donnie and Andre decide to make a major investment. This is going to definitely get the tongues wagging, much like the impromptu wedding and the last-minute change to the schedule, not doing a photo shoot and heading off to do their own thing instead. In Monday's episode, Leslie's involvement in Winterfest stirs emotions with some old friends. It was always going to be a thing that Leslie was involved in Winterfest since she is, after all, the only daughter of Barbara, the original Articulette. Leslie made a strong case to be a part of it with Anita, and eventually, Anita saw fit to include Leslie. The old friends must be Anita's, as Leslie doesn't have any friends to call. We're at the start of another big week on Beyond the Gates, soap fans, so be ready for lots of soapy drama, especially involving Kat, Eva, and Vernon's secret meetings with Sharon. If you've been watching Beyond the Gates, you already know things around Haley Hamilton have been getting messier by the day, and now Marquita Goings is finally talking about when she realized her character wasn't just a sweet wife, but someone hiding something much darker. The way she found out might surprise you. Before the big reveal even aired, viewers could already feel that something was off with Haley, especially in her scenes with Danny Dupress. But funny enough, Marquita said she joined the show with zero idea that Haley had anything sinister going on. She remembered filming an early argument with Carla Mosley's Danny, where she tried to make Haley snap a little. But the producers stopped her and told her to keep playing Haley the same gentle way she had been. Naturally, she asked them why. Marquita said she wanted to understand why Haley wouldn't react differently. That's when the producers hinted that her character would have a shift later on. She didn't know what that meant at the time, but it was the first moment she realized something was brewing behind the scenes. About a month before shooting the major episodes, producer Julie Hanan Carruthers called her in for a proper talk. Marquita said Julie laid out more of what was coming, which helped her understand that Haley wasn't exactly who she appeared to be. Even after that conversation, Marquita still didn't know the full truth. She said she only understood the real scope of Haley's actions when she finally read the scripts, and her reaction was basically, "Oh wow!" That's when she discovered that Haley had been poisoning her husband Bill as part of a plan to get his fortune. She said the dialogue spelled out everything she hadn't realized before, and it suddenly made all of those earlier producer notes make perfect sense. For viewers, the reveal felt huge, but hearing Marquita talk about it makes it even clearer that the twist was kept tightly under wraps until the very last moment. Marquita didn't spill anything about where Haley goes from here, and honestly, that just makes us all more curious. She said that she and the producers talked about the present storyline and some future developments, but there's still a lot of mystery around what's coming. She made it clear she doesn't want to give away too much, because even a small hint could spoil something big. But she did say the communication behind the scenes has been very open, which tells us the writers definitely have a long game planned for Haley. Stay tuned to Soap Opera Daily for all the latest Beyond the Gates twists and updates. There is something almost biblical about Behind the Gates, not in its morality, of course, but in the way it inspires blind devotion, righteous fury, and the occasional urge to smite the writers. Few shows manage to turn a simple domestic feud into a theological war between Team Eva and Team Kat. Yet this series, in all its low-budget glory, has achieved exactly that. The fandom has turned the women's rivalry into a modern book of Genesis. Two flawed creations locked in eternal combat, each insisting the serpent was the other's mother. The show's defenders will tell you that Behind the Gates is a study in complexity, a mirror to real-world dysfunction. In truth, it's a masterclass in narrative cowardice. The writers mistake inconsistency for depth, believing that if every character contradicts themselves often enough, the audience will call it gray morality. Instead, it's just lazy storytelling dressed up in melodrama. Eva weeps her way through schemes of her own making. Kat delivers cutting remarks, like a debutante at confession. And their supposedly powerful families stand around wringing their hands as if allergic to plot resolution. If modern television ever canonizes saints, Eva Thomas will surely be the first martyr of bad writing. Her sins are well documented: adultery, deceit, accessory to attempted murder. But thanks to the show's indulgent scripting, she wears them like rosary beads of victimhood. Viewers are expected to forgive her because she grew up under the shadow of her mother Leslie, the show's reigning sociopath, as if childhood trauma were a divine permit to wreak havoc well into adulthood. Every act of malice from Eva comes prepackaged with justification. She didn't betray Ted and Nicole. She was misled. She didn't humiliate a family. She was trying to find herself. She didn't help her mother cover up a crime. She was emotionally manipulated. This is not redemption. It's narrative nepotism. The writers treat her accountability the way soap operas treat the dead, mentioned often but never actually present. Worse still, Eva has become a study in aesthetic sympathy. Her defenders don't excuse her because she's right. They excuse her because she's relatable. She's the average woman, the scrappy underdog from the wrong side of the tracks. And so the fandom, ever eager to project virtue onto victimhood, crowns her as the people's champion. The irony is divine. She's adored for being real while doing everything possible to prove she's not. If Eva is the saint, Kat Dupree is the devil of Fairmont Crest, a woman guilty of the unpardonable sin of being right too early. From the moment she sized up Eva and her deranged mother as trouble, the audience decided she was insufferable. Why? Because she did what the police, the writers, and her own father refused to do: think critically. Kat's intuition was framed as elitism, her boundaries as snobbery, and her justifiable fury as entitlement. It's a fascinating moral reversal. The same audience that applauds Eva for surviving dysfunction vilifies Kat for expecting better. Her intelligence becomes arrogance. Her wealth becomes villainy. Her discernment becomes cruelty. The hypocrisy would be breathtaking if it weren't so tedious. In any functional narrative, Kat would be the heroine, the Cassandra figure whose warnings go ignored until the entire kingdom burns. But in Behind the Gates, being right is a character flaw. The show's writers seem terrified of strength in women unless it's accompanied by emotional collapse. Thus, Kat must be softened by humiliation, heartbreak, or the tedious moral sermons of lesser characters who mistake forgiveness for virtue. And then there's Leslie, the show's unkillable cockroach. She has survived more criminal acts than a Gotham villain, yet never faces consequence. She is, by all accounts, the only character with actual power, and that is precisely why the writers protect her. The Duprees may be the first family, but Leslie Thomas runs the city from her chaos alone. Each of her plots unfolds like a car crash in slow motion, yet somehow she walks away every time without a scratch, while everyone else ends up apologizing for not understanding her pain. Her crimes are not even subtle. Attempted murder, framing, impersonating hospital staff, these are not ambiguous moral dilemmas. Yet somehow, every time Leslie should be in handcuffs, the show pivots into moral relativism. But she's hurting. But she loves her daughter. But she was betrayed. The only but worth noting is the one the writers keep covering to avoid accountability. Leslie's omnipotence isn't a sign of her genius. It's a symptom of a show that confuses stagnation with suspense. Every episode resets the board, as if the audience has collective amnesia. She commits crimes, faces mild scolding, and is free again by the next commercial break. It's as though Behind the Gates was written by people who believe justice is optional if your wig budget is high enough. The so-called power family of Fairmont Crest could not organize a bake sale, let alone a dynasty. The Duprees are portrayed as black excellence incarnate, affluent, respected, politically connected. Yet, for all their prestige, they've been terrorized by one woman with a motorcycle and a bad dye job. Vernon, a former senator, apparently knows every politician in the state, but not a single corrupt cop who could make Leslie disappear for a weekend. Anita, a woman whose presence should command respect, spends most of her screen time issuing polite warnings instead of declarations. And Ted, the patriarch whose moral failings started half the chaos, wanders around like a man searching for his lost storyline. The show's refusal to let the Duprees behave like a powerful family is perhaps its greatest betrayal. Audiences tuned in expecting the elegance of the Quartermains or the cunning of the Newmans, and instead got a family so passive they make the bold and the boring look like Game of Thrones. They lecture about legacy while getting outmaneuvered by con artists and 20-somethings with burner phones. Respectability politics have replaced narrative consequence. The result? A dynasty that inspires pity instead of envy. At its core, Behind the Gates is not a battle between good and evil, but between archetypes. Eva is written as the bitch goddess of modern soap, the manipulative survivor who weaponizes vulnerability. Kat, meanwhile, embodies the bougie ice queen, the professional woman punished for her competence. Their conflict isn't about morality, it's about which stereotype the writers think audiences will tolerate longer. The tragedy is that both women could have been fascinating if written with any discipline. Eva's trauma could have been explored without absolving her sins. Kat's arrogance could have been nuanced rather than vilified. Instead, the writers reduced both to symbols in a morality play where no one learns and everyone screams. It's less Shakespearean tragedy, more prolonged Twitter feud. The fandom has become an extension of the show's dysfunction. Entire digital battalions form to defend their chosen idol. Eva was manipulated, cries one camp. Kat is classist, insists another. It's all very impassioned and utterly irrelevant. The truth is, both characters are insufferable for the same reason. They exist in a universe that refuses to let anyone grow. In one episode, Eva cries about redemption. In the next, she's plotting again. Kat delivers righteous lectures about integrity, only to break into apartments and plant evidence. Every moral stance dissolves within an episode because the writers fear permanence more than they fear ridicule. And so the fans continue to argue over fictional ethics while the show itself commits the only real crime: mediocrity. The great tragedy of Behind the Gates is not its characters' behavior, but the show's chronic fear of its own potential. It wants to be a soap opera with teeth, a glossy, high-stakes melodrama about wealth, betrayal, and legacy, but it has the pulse of a church committee meeting. Every scandal is softened, every consequence delayed, and every villain granted a redemption arc so premature it could qualify for child labor. The show's creators seem convinced that the audience can't handle true mess unless it comes with a sermon attached. This moral sanitizing is particularly galling given the show's premise. A wealthy black family, allegedly powerful enough to run an entire city. Yet, in practice, the Duprees couldn't organize a coup against a bake sale. They don't wield influence. They hold prayer circles. Every time they're challenged by Leslie or Eva, they respond with polite disappointment, as if manners were a viable defense strategy. One almost expects Anita to confront Leslie by quoting Maya Angelou instead of calling the police. The NAACP co-signing the show was supposed to be a mark of cultural significance. Instead, it's a creative muzzle. What could have been a bold portrayal of black affluence and moral complexity has been neutered into a pageant of politeness. The Duprees are trapped in a performance of perfection, successful, dignified, and utterly useless. They are written not as people, but as an ideal, the respectable black elite who must never sully their hands even when the world is burning around them. It's respectability politics in 4K. Every scene drips with the anxiety of representation. The writers want the Duprees to be aspirational symbols of success, but the cost of that aspiration is agency, power without corruption, wealth without ruthlessness, morality without consequence. It's an exhausting fantasy that kills good drama on sight. Meanwhile, Leslie and Eva, with their chaos and raw survival instincts, are allowed to dominate the narrative precisely because they violate those rules. They are free to sin because they were written to fall. The result is a distorted moral landscape where villainy is interesting and virtue is a cure for insomnia. The show cannot decide whether it wants to be Empire or The Cosby Show, and so it hovers awkwardly in between, delivering neither the audacity of the former nor the coherence of the latter. It's a world where crime is more emotionally honest than decorum. For a family that allegedly built Fairmont Crest, the Duprees possess all the backbone of warm meringue. Vernon, a former senator, should be a titan, a man with the connections and cunning to neutralize threats before they reach the front gate. Instead, he dithers around the estate like an elderly intern, sighing about the good name of the family, while the good name gets mugged in the driveway. Anita, whose regal bearing should make her the Black Lady Macbeth of daytime television, is written with all the edge of a PBS pledge drive. She has the gravitas to destroy empires, yet the writers confine her to gentle lectures and moral hand-holding. Even Ted Dupree, patriarch in title only, exists in a permanent fog of guilt and self-pity. He's the spiritual ancestor of every soap husband who mistakes contrition for character development. His decisions are the matchsticks that set every storyline ablaze, yet he remains the one man nobody ever holds accountable. The writers seem determined to paint him as a tragic father rather than the reckless adulterer whose chaos detonated his family. If the show had an ounce of courage, Ted would be its true villain. Too weak to be evil, but far too self-serving to be good. Kat Dupree continues to be the moral compass the writers desperately try to demagnetize. She's a character designed for complexity, brilliant, proud, and deeply human in her inability to forgive. Yet the show treats her integrity as a personality flaw. Her refusal to play the endless forgiveness carousel makes her bitter. Her justified anger is pettiness. Her mistrust of Eva is elitism. The writers have no idea how to write a strong black woman without immediately apologizing for it. Kat's greatest sin, apparently, is that she refuses to perform humility. She does not grovel when wronged, she does not beg when betrayed, and she does not weep prettily on cue. In a genre built on female suffering, Kat's defiance reads as arrogance. That's not character development, it's gendered punishment. Every time she's vindicated, the show rushes to soften her image, often by humiliating her romantically or socially. She's the only character punished for telling the truth in a series that pretends to celebrate truth. Meanwhile, Eva continues to thrive on a script that treats her as both sinner and savior, depending on the camera angle. Her fans argue that she's a product of manipulation, a woman twisted by the lies of her narcissistic mother. But this excuse collapses under the weight of repetition. At some point, a grown woman who repeatedly chooses deceit over decency stops being a victim and starts being an accomplice. The show wants Eva's trauma to absolve her of moral responsibility while still letting her act with adult autonomy. It's a contradiction that would make Freud give up psychiatry. She sabotages people, hides evidence, sleeps with her sister's boyfriend, and helps cover up a literal attempted murder, all while the writers compose soft lighting and somber piano music to make her look like she's suffering more than her victims. She's not a flawed heroine. She's a narcissist with a soundtrack. Yet, because the show is terrified of alienating its relatable audience, Eva always lands on her feet. The residents of Fairmont Crest treat her with baffling civility, as if betrayal were a minor social faux pas. Her father welcomes her into the family fold as though DNA automatically cleanses sin. Even her rivals, once suitably enraged, are instructed by the script to move on. The universe conspires to protect her from the logical consequences of her actions. In other words, she's the writer's favorite child. And then there are the viewers, ever the enablers of mediocrity. The fandom is split between Eva apologists and Kat defenders, each side building moral fortresses out of selective memory. Eva was manipulated, say the first, as if manipulation were a rare condition rather than a human default. Kat is spoiled, counter the others, equating confidence with cruelty. The arguments are endless because the writing encourages them. Behind the Gates thrives not on resolution, but on confusion. It survives by convincing its audience that perpetual chaos equals entertainment. What the fandom often misses is that both women are casualties of the same cowardice. Eva's moral elasticity and Kat's supposed elitism are not personality traits, they're symptoms of lazy characterization. The writers refuse to let either woman evolve because evolution would require decisions, and decisions would require consequence. And consequence, as we've established, is the show's most elusive guest star. The strangest part of Behind the Gates is how it weaponizes morality not as guidance, but as misdirection. Characters deliver sermons about forgiveness while actively plotting revenge. They claim integrity while lying through perfect teeth. It's a world where ethics are treated like dialogue filler, useful only until the next commercial break. The show's moral compass spins so violently one might mistake it for a blender. Even the alleged good characters, like Ted or Anita, operate in a haze of selective outrage. They condemn the Dupree's detractors while ignoring their own moral rot. The result is a narrative where everyone is wrong, but only some are punished for it. Kat gets labeled bitter. Eva gets redemption montages. Leslie gets airtime. The moral math doesn't add up, but the writers keep balancing their books in delusion. Classic soaps thrived on audacity. The patriarchs were tyrants, the matriarchs were schemers, and the sinners were at least interesting. But Behind the Gates suffers from a fatal modern anxiety, the terror of being unlikable. Every character must be redeemable, every villain must have a sob story, and every act of vengeance must be explained by trauma. It's therapy masquerading as drama. The writers are so busy justifying everyone's behavior that they've forgotten the point of the genre. Mess is supposed to be fun. Instead, the show preaches caution while pretending to be chaotic. No one pays for their crimes, no one learns from their mistakes, and no one ever truly changes. Characters commit felonies one week and host charity galas the next. Leslie can attempt murder and still get dinner invitations. Eva can destroy a marriage and still be treated as misunderstood. Kat can be right and still be labeled hysterical. It's an ecosystem of absurdity, sustained by the writer's refusal to choose sides. By the time the credits roll on any given episode of Behind the Gates, one can almost hear the collective sigh of a nation of viewers asking the same question: why are we still watching this? The answer, unfortunately, is the same as the reason people slow down at car crashes. It's not admiration, it's morbid fascination. The show has become a cultural landfill of squandered potential, where good actors are buried under bad dialogue and narrative momentum dies in committee. What makes the failure so infuriating is that all the raw material for greatness is right there. A wealthy black dynasty, generational secrets, rivalries that echo class warfare, a matriarch with political ties. It should be catnip for anyone who's ever worshipped at the altar of dynasty, empire, or Greenleaf. Yet the writers treat drama like a health hazard. Every storyline that begins with a spark ends with a lecture. Every betrayal becomes a therapy session. The show can't decide whether it wants to scandalize or moralize, so it accomplishes neither. The writing team's greatest sin is not incompetence, it's timidity. They fear their own audience. In an age where social media outrage dictates creative direction, Behind the Gates tries to be everything to everyone and ends up being nothing to anyone. Every time a character behaves badly, the show rushes to provide justification. A dead relative, a traumatic childhood, a misunderstanding. God forbid anyone just be wrong. It's as if the writers are terrified of unlikable women, which is ironic given that unlikable women built the soap genre. Erica Kane, Alexis Carrington, Jill Abbott, these were women who sinned boldly and apologized never. They were magnetic precisely because they refused to be digestible. Behind the Gates has all the trappings of that legacy. The couture, the mansions, the monologues, but none of the courage. It's women's sin cry and seek validation, like a morality play rewritten by a guidance counselor. Modern television loves to market itself as empowering, which in soap terms translates to neutered. Behind the Gates is so desperate to appear socially conscious that it has stripped its female leads of genuine agency. Eva's every choice is reframed as the product of victimhood. Kat's strength is punished until it resembles hysteria. Even Leslie, for all her psychotic brilliance, is granted just enough humanity to keep the moral accountants from revolting. What the writers don't seem to grasp is that empowerment without autonomy is just manipulation in a silk blouse. The show keeps insisting that Eva's trauma absolves her, but true empowerment would mean letting her face the full, unvarnished consequences of her choices and survive them. Instead, she is coddled by both the script and the fandom, a character forever suspended between guilt and absolution. Likewise, Kat's so-called elitism could have been a fascinating lens on class tension within the Black community if the writers hadn't turned it into a one-note insult. Instead of interrogating the privilege versus struggle dichotomy, the show treats it like a personality flaw that needs curing through romantic humiliation. One must also address the audience's complicity in this creative anemia. Viewers defend the show's incoherence as realism, confusing chaos for complexity. They claim the endless circular arguments are nuanced, when in truth they're just lazy repetition. We've reached the point where fans spend more time debating which fictional woman deserves forgiveness than demanding that the writers improve the plot. The audience has become the show's most dependable enabler, clutching pearls over Kat's sharp tongue while ignoring Eva's criminal resume. The hypocrisy is almost impressive. Class resentment fuels the discourse, not morality. Eva gets empathy because she's relatable. Kat gets contempt because she's aspirational. It's the politics of projection. People don't want justice. They want vindication for their own insecurities. And the writers, ever opportunistic, feed that impulse like a sugar addiction. There is a pathological need in modern storytelling to redeem everyone. No matter how heinous the act, there must always be a flashback to explain it away. The mother was cruel, the father absent, the system unfair. It's as if accountability has gone out of style. Behind the Gates suffers terminally from this disease. Every villain must be misunderstood. Every betrayal must come with emotional subtitles. But redemption without repentance is just recycling. By refusing to let anyone truly fall, the show deprives itself of catharsis. When everyone is equally guilty and equally forgiven, nothing matters. The tension that once defined great soaps, the moral chess of revenge and atonement, has been replaced by group therapy with better lighting. The audience is left not exhilarated, but exhausted. What may be most insulting of all is how the show has handled its central conceit: a Black family of wealth and influence. For decades, Black audiences have been denied depictions of dynastic power that weren't rooted in crime or struggle. Behind the Gates had the rare chance to portray affluence without apology, and it squandered it on cowardice. The Duprees don't lead, they plead. They hold the social capital of a nation, yet spend their days lecturing about grace while being terrorized by a single, unhinged woman with a motorbike. It's almost performance art, the illusion of power staged as parody. The writers mistake restraint for respectability, as if strength were somehow undignified. But power unexercised is not virtue, it's impotence. Viewers were promised a dynasty and got a daycare. The great soap patriarchs of the past, Victor Newman, Adam Chandler, Asa Buchanan, would have devoured Leslie Thomas before the first ad break. The Duprees, by contrast, would likely offer her a seat at the dinner table and a motivational speech. Imagine the show it could be: a Black family wielding political and corporate might with ruthless efficiency, rival factions clawing for dominance, morality bending under the weight of ambition. Eva, written as a genuine anti-heroine who weaponizes both her pain and her intelligence. Kat, a formidable counterpart who channels her privilege into precision rather than petulance. Leslie, a tragic monster undone by her own brilliance rather than protected by plot armor. That is the show Behind the Gates keeps promising and perpetually refuses to deliver. The ingredients are all there. The problem is the recipe. The writers are too afraid to let their characters truly clash, too polite to let their consequences sting, too self-conscious to let their story breathe. They mistake representation for restraint, thinking that to show a powerful Black family behaving badly is somehow betrayal. In reality, that's what would make them human. Complexity is not defamation. its dimension. Ultimately, Behind the Gates is not a show about legacy, love, or even lies. It's about fear. The fear of backlash, the fear of imperfection, the fear of letting a Black story be as messy, audacious, and unapologetic as its white predecessors. It preaches empowerment, but delivers hesitation.